Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Behind the Sold Sign podcast with your hosts, Justin Saunier and my colleague,
Sheila Kirkpatrick.
And today we're going to review the stats from the month of April, and we're going to compare them to last month, March.
Yes.
And then we're also going to take a moment to look at the interest rates, and then we're going to talk about some rentals and how those rental prices have been
skyrocketing.
Yes.
If you look at the 10-year history.
Exactly, which we will take a moment to review and kind of walk through all of that just for some insight.
Yeah.
See where this market has taken us.
So, first thing, let's talk about the average sales price for the month of April. So what are we sitting at for the month of April?
For the month of April, we are sitting at an average sales price of $338,493.
That is crazy. Let's say that again. $338,493.
Which is an 8.1% increase from April of 2023.
That is nuts. Because all of last year, we were averaging out about 4% of an increase from the year previous. And just over April of last year, we're looking at 8%.
Yeah. Yep. And if we're comparing the average price from year to date, so the average sales price from year to date is $321,433, which is a 13.9% increase.
And yeah, so when you think about that 13.9% increase over last year's year to date to the same time period, but let's just take it even back to December, the end of the year, and our average sales price for the year was $303,519.
Yep.
So you're looking at about $18,000 difference in year to date pricing, and we can see from April of this year. At 338,493, we can see how that's climbing. But let's even just compare that to last month's number. Where were we at for last month?
So for the average sales price for March of 2024, we were looking at $326,937.
When you look at those numbers, you have to ask yourself, as a buyer, what am I waiting for? Because we're looking at these numbers, and again, I'm just going to take it back to that 303,519, and we were at that price at the end of the year. We told people in the podcast, this is the seasonal low, numbers are going to climb, but now we're looking at average sales prices of last month at 320, almost 327, and now we're looking at 338.5, let's just say, and they are continuing to climb and climbing at a faster rate.
A very rapid rate.
Right, faster than I would have ever have thought.
I mean, and I could see it increasing, but by this big of a jump, it's like, okay, this is a lot to take in.
It truly is. And then when you look at the data, and again, we're always analyzing the data because we're trying to put our clients first and give them good advice to be making decisions. So we were telling our buyers, like, you need to get into the market as quick as you can because prices are going to increase. But what's interesting about the statistics is that the numbers, we are actually getting more listings. We actually have more listings this year at this time that are coming onto the market than we did
last year at this time. Yeah, so we've had new listings this month. We've had 287 new listings compared to last year, 213.
Right, which is a pretty big difference. So you would think that things would be balancing out a little bit more.
That's the irony. You would think with the more listings, it would be balancing, but we actually have more buyers now coming to the table, which in return is still driving things up.
Yeah, it's kind of concerning a bit for our buyers. Obviously, as a homeowner, this is very, very exciting news. But as a buyer, all we can do is keep telling you, get yourself into the market, because with our podcast last week, we also talked about the projections across the province.
Yeah.
And the projections are that our prices are going to increase in 2024, and they're also going to increase into 2025. So the quicker that you can get yourself into something, the better it will be for you.
Absolutely. Time is of the essence, and the data is showing that. So again, even with more inventory coming on the market, the buyer demand is increasing as well. So it is not balancing out, unfortunately.
Which is great to see that consumer confidence is up to be making the purchases. And I'm guessing that one of the reasons those are up is because people are now going, I don't want to wait till those interest rates drop, because how many more people are waiting for those interest rates to drop? So I think people are going, you know what, I need to get myself into the market, because it's only going to get more competitive when those things happen. And the number is going to be small incremental changes, I believe, with the interest rates. They're going to come down, but...
I do too. And then how much more is it going to drive up that average price? Because that could be daunting.
Yeah.
So yeah, it really is a now versus later type of thing if you are serious. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we're going to keep you updated each and every month on the stats that are coming out, and to see, you know, are things coming up, things stabilizing, are they coming down at all? But what we're continuing to see right from the beginning of the year, as we suspected, climb, and climb.
Yeah.
And then the next topic is our interest rates. And this is really a quick topic for us, because there's really not a lot to report.
No change at this point. Yeah. So if you're doing a fixed 5-year rate, you know, if you go with a broker, you can get as low as 4.94.
Yeah.
Or if you're going with a bank, it's currently at 6.84. But like you said, negotiable.
Yeah, that's a posted rate. Don't ever pay the posted rate. And just again, that quick tip, which we gave people last week, is if you just want the quick numbers on rates, you can always look at woa.ca.
Yep.
And you'll see rates changing on a daily basis there, but it's your most up-to-date broker rates out there.
Absolutely. All right. So now this one's interesting as well. The historical average rents. Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like we talk about pain points every once in a while, and those that are renting, I feel like this is probably one of the greatest conversation pieces out there for any renters. I see it in a number of groups that I'm in on Facebook, and we've been trying to provide more information when it comes to renting for people. But these numbers, you'll see a huge increase. Then we'll talk about the national average price, and then we'll talk about our local price.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. So if we take it back to October of 2014, so 10 years ago,
yes,
we were sitting at an average, we'll say, of $708.
Right. Which
for a rental sounds very reasonable.
Sounds pretty reasonable. We're looking here at sorry, I just have to adjust my mic here a bit. We're looking here for we talk about bachelors, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and then an average price. So let's talk about the average 2-bedroom at that time. Average 2-bedroom, $739 10 years ago, with the average across the board of $708. Yeah. And then 5 years ago, we'll talk about pre-COVID pricing. And these numbers that we're talking about right now, they are coming direct from CMHC. The latest update was October of 2023. So all these numbers are based on the month of October in those years. But what we're looking at, 2019, 5 years ago, pre-COVID, we were looking at $812 for the average, and the 2-bedroom went up to $847.
Which again, you're reflecting on these numbers and you're going, oh, still very reasonable. And again, pre-COVID. So yeah, October 2019.
Yeah. And these numbers are interesting too, because if you look at the history of the numbers, and I know that you guys can't see the entire data that we have, but every single year there's a continuous climb. So what is that saying for investors? That rent is continuing to go up. I mean, obviously cost of living goes up, and we've seen a lot of that in the last little bit.
We sure have, yeah.
But we hadn't seen those big incremental changes until more recent years. But each and every year, again, solid investment is to increase rent. So,
Yep.
And then looking at 2024, and this is as of April of this year, and this would be the national average. So what are people paying across the country for rent? And it's always a number that I find there's these conversations that go on and go, oh, well, our average price here, we're paying the same as people are paying in these big cities. But what we're looking at is the average is actually $2,270.
Right. And I mean, that's a pretty high average, depending. However, we definitely do have rentals that are going for that price or more, which is, again, a scary situation because the pricing is just increasing.
Yeah. And a lot of those rentals that we're seeing in that higher price point are typically houses.
Yes.
Versus
that's true.
the apartment, rental business. And there's obviously different numbers for that, but we wanted to try to keep everything consistent along the way, and this is where we could find the best data to do that. So the average for the country, 2270, and where are we sitting for St. John?
Yeah, so for St. John,
and this would be for October.
Yeah. So for an average, we're at $1,034. Now, if we're looking at a 2-bedroom, it was $1,093.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is we are seeing our prices climb. But that would probably be natural with what's going on in our economy as far as the housing market and just natural economics. But as much as the rentals are across the country, we're still less than half that price on average.
Yes.
So that's something to be a little hopeful about. But we know that it is challenging times for people, but it's always good to know what these numbers are. So whether you're buying or renting, we're here as a resource. So if you ever have questions and you want to know, what are things going for, it doesn't always have to be that I'm buying right now. It's more about we want to be a resource for you folks.
Yeah, and I think it's just so important to get the information as early as possible because, again, when we're reviewing the rental data or the average home sale price data, both reports are only showing increases year after year after year. Mm-hmm. Now, will that eventually teeter off? Of course, at some point.
I think eventually it will. At some point it has to.
It has to.
Yeah.
But when? And we all know that the longer you hold on to that investment, you are going to recoup that money that you put in as long as you maintain it. But it's telling us we need to act now.
Yeah.
That would be the biggest piece of feedback that
act like 3 months ago. Act 3 years ago.
Literally, though. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And one of these things that we've talked about is we didn't think we would be continuing to have these conversations. And it's like we've said, it's great for homeowners, but for home buyers, it's more and more of a challenge out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there are going to be pros and cons to every scenario, whether you're selling and then repurchasing something else. If you're downsizing, that's a great opportunity. But even if you're selling and going into a rental, a lot of the rental prices are just more expensive than what current homeowners are comfortable paying because they're not used to that price being so inflated.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to spend it with us today. Yep. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And more importantly than anything, reach out if you need anything. We're here as a resource. We want to be able to answer your questions, and that's why we started the podcast.
Absolutely.
Take care.
See you.